YouTube, Magnum Prime here, and today we're going to take a look at x-transbots Andras, which is their masterpiece take on Scourge. This is newly reissued in a Toon coloration, so we're going to check him out. If you're new to our channel, hello and welcome. Please be sure to hit the subscribe button down below. Okay, here we go. So in terms of accessories, it's quite a good set actually. We've got a flight stand, which I'll show off in the alt mode section. We get a standard blaster, which looks really premium. This looks very nice. It's got a nice finish to it, some sculpted bits of detail, and then the accent silver and red paint on it. It looks good. The blaster tabs in very securely with a masterpiece style tab, and it holds very securely even with the hand open. Probably the main attraction though for accessories is Fracas, or as they've called him amusingly, Rimfire. There you go. He's very articulate. He's got multiple points of articulation. There's lots of ball pegs everywhere, but they're kind of hidden as well, which I like. I don't like visible ball pegs on things. I think it kind of makes figures look a little bit kind of wonky. It breaks the sculpt. Around the back they are visible, but from the front they're not. So as I say, very poseable, multiple points of articulation. I think my one criticism would be that in the face he doesn't look particularly much like the character, and also he doesn't have quite the same premium paint finish as the rest of the set, including the main figure Andras. This is all just plastic. It's okay, it's nicely done, and you've got bits of detail, but it just doesn't look as premium. So it's a little bit convoluted to get Rimfire into place in the hand, but once he's in, he's very secure. I don't think as an alt mode this is particularly convincing, at least not to my eye anyway. I mean, it's all right, but it is very much tiny little robot folded up. So it's not the best, but there you go. They made an effort. So starting with the head, it's on a hinge and a swivel. It will get a little bit of a look up and no look down whatsoever. It does also kind of clunk against this back collar a little bit as well. It just prevents the side motion a little bit. The arms are on a universal and will in theory rotate a full 360 all the way around on a ratchet, but you are prevented by the back kibble from doing so. The arms will extend out to the side a full 90 degrees, which is pretty good. You've got a double elbow joint, which is very good, and a bicep swivel, and the hands will swivel also, and the fingers, or murder claws in this case, are multiple, have got multiple points of articulation, so very good stuff. The waist, there is a little bit of movement, a little bit of a swivel and a ratchet, but not much, and there is no ab crunch. This is old school masterpiece stuff here. We've got more ratchets down on the legs, there's ratchets everywhere. So the legs will extend a little shy of fully outwards and a little shy, well, a little bit more than shy actually, out to the back. That's just due to the back kibble being there. In terms of out to the side, again, you can nearly get there, but not quite. For the knees, you've got a soft tension joint here and then a ratchet on the lower part. So you've got two joints, and you can get a little bit more than 90 degrees on those. Down at the feet, you've got a really good ankle rocker, toe tilt, and a ratcheted heel spur. So there are some really good, well-designed points of articulation on this figure, but there are also some limitations as well. Some of it's just age and, you know, the design of the figure, you know, is from a time in the past where you didn't have certain expectations, and some of it is down to just clunkiness of kind of the kibble that comes with the character, as it were. But, you know, good points nonetheless. Overall, 6 out of 10. And one thing I should point out, actually, a bit remiss of me, is that the wings are articulated on ratchets as well. So that is pretty good. So in terms of scale, I haven't got a Galvatron, but here he is with Megatron. So in terms of height and scale, we'll use the Sunbow chart, which is obviously a hyper-accurate way of fully defining all aspects of scale in the Sunbow Transformers world. He is, I'm being sarcastic of course, he is a little bit too tall in terms of that scale. Scourge should be a little bit shorter, probably down somewhere at Megatron's chest, something like that. But I don't think he's obnoxiously out of place. He doesn't look ridiculous or anything like that. I think this fits. So I'm going to give it 9 out of 10. And just to show him off with some other movie bots, like I said, I haven't got any baddies, but here he is with the goodies. And I think this looks aesthetically really, really good. The colours and just the way they kind of offset each other, I think it's fantastic. Like I said, I think he is too big for Scourge. You can see that here with the others. But, you know, it gives him an air of menacing imposability. Is that a word, imposability? It is now. So if we start with the paint, this thing is immaculate. In particular, this dark blue shiny paint on here is, I mean, it's like a car bonnet. It's so smooth and well done and high grade stuff. This is not going to chip. It's really, really good. The light blue is a more matte kind of muted effect, but again, still high end finish, as is the silver on here. This is a little bit shiny, but it's not super shiny. It's just really, really well done all over the figure. You've kind of got a spray painted effect on the inside of the wings, and at first I thought maybe this just wasn't cleanly applied, but it's actually, it's uniform, so it's the same on both sides. So I think that's intentional to give it just a bit of a stylized look. It looks incredible paint wise, this figure. Sculpt wise, I think the face is too squashed up. It doesn't look right. It's sort of Scourge like, but it doesn't look like Scourge, and I think the nose is a little bit off as well. You've got a couple of, or three actually, unsightly screws on top of his helmet laser, if that's the right word for it, and it just looks a little bit off. They're there because inside here is a light up mechanism which lights up at the front, but it also lights up the eyes as well, and without the light up there, it just doesn't look right. The eyes are so dead. I mean, I'm all for a light up mechanism, but not at the price that you have to pay in terms of having unsightly screws on the top of what is otherwise an immaculately well done piece. I think it just detracts from it. And the fact that the eyes look so dead, in this case, I would have just painted them a nice shiny red and it would have looked fantastic. Build wise, I think this is really, really excellently well done. They've got ratchets in all the right places. It's got a good heft to it. All the tension joints are super smooth and strong at the same time. There's none of that squeakiness that you sometimes get with x-transbots stuff. Aesthetic wise, you've got a couple of bits where the panels don't neatly squeeze together, so you've got a few visible lines showing. Now, in fairness, if we bring in the Toon version, if this works, you can see on there are a couple of lines down the center of his thighs, so they kind of get away with it in that respect. Maybe, I don't know. Toon wise, I think they've done an incredible job. Now I know there's a light blue versus the dark grey on these bits on the versus the animation, but in some of the animated series, Scourge did have actually light blue effects on these parts, so I think they've gone for that look. But I mean, overall, I mean, look, this is brilliant. I mean, look at the swoop of the wings and the way that they've built that in. I think they've done a cracking job of making a Toon representation of Scourge here. Really good stuff. Cleans up brilliantly from the front. He's obviously got the backpack, but you know, they've made it so they've tucked it away really, really nicely, I think, and they've made it so that it's not top heavy or anything like that. He holds it really, really well. So I think good stuff there. So overall quality is really, really high. It's impressed me actually. It's a lot higher than I was expecting. There are a couple of niggles more in terms of aesthetic, particularly the face sculpt. So I'm going to give it 8 out of 10, but it is really, really good. So in terms of transformation, he's essentially a shell former with all that entails. Basically, he's quite easy to get into bot mode, but he's a little bit more tricky to get back into alt mode because you've got all of these panels to line up in the right way and clip in, and things come untabbed and move around and all of that kind of stuff. Now, he's very well built and the stuff is all very solid. There are no flimsy tabs or anything like that, which means it can get there and it's quite rigid. It's not a terrible process. So overall, I think the engineering is very good. I think the design of the transformation is a bit poor in a couple of places. So the head's quite awkward to get back into this bit when you're going to alt mode. This hinge is a bit of a poor choice, because if you just move on this double hinge without manipulating it a bit, you will snap basically you'll snap it. So you need to be careful with that one. The biggie though is down at the feet. And I'm surprised that they've left it like this, because there were issues with the feet in the first release. And basically what the problem is that you've got to push the foot through a very tight gap to get this into bot mode, and vice versa actually to get it backwards. And you actually run the risk of cracking this section. You can see here it's just open a little bit. And it's quite a strange choice, because all they had to do was put something in that would allow these two panels to open up and move the feet around that way, and that would have just done away with it. So bit of a poor design choice there. Overall, I think it is very good, though. There are some niggles, and I'm quite surprised, as I said, that they've left some of those in there for this reissue. So final score, 7 out of 10. So here he is in alt mode then, and as promised he's attached to the flight stand, which is pretty cool actually. It doesn't articulate, which is a shame. It does kind of wobble though. It's got a very good wobble on it. So in fairness, it is in quite a good stock angle for the pose, so that's pretty cool. It just attaches on the underside down here. There's a little disappearing tab under there, so that's pretty cool. So alt mode itself, the paint I think in places is, again, I mean, it's just incredible. This finish on here, this dark blue and slightly lighter dark blue metallic, it is like a car. It's so good. In other places it's nicely done, but you've kind of got a little bit of mismatch between the tones. This is blue plastic, whereas this is painted, and you can definitely see the difference between the two. Also, there are a couple of little QC points on mine. You can kind of see there's basically just a brush mark on there, and just some wobbly bits around the edges where it's not quite there's a bit of a contrast when you compare it to the quality of this, which is outstanding. So that is something. Sculpt wise, it's got some really nice little sculpted detail bits across it, which they kind of catch in the metallic glint of it, and it pops. It really does. It's so good. There are kind of obviously noticeable gaps where the panels join. Now, in fairness, some of that might just be me not being able to squeeze this stuff together very well, but in some places it's just very, very visible. Despite that, these are all chunked in properly, but you know, these jaggedy bits, I think that could have been done with being hidden. And you know, I mean, it is a shell former, so you kind of got to give it a bit of leeway. But like, for example, this is very well done. That's very unnoticeable. You know, it doesn't stand out, but other bits do. I mean, it just is what it is. Overall, though, I think this is a really good alt mode. I think it looks the part. I mean, if we bring in the Toon animation, you can see, I mean, it's not bang on perfect, but it is pretty damn close. And I love the way that like they've made this shaded to kind of match. Some of this is slightly different, but you know, the animation does vary, doesn't it? I think overall it's a cracking attempt. It looks really, really good. It's got a very premium feel to it, put it that way. Some of the niggly bits you kind of notice on closer inspection. So overall, alt mode, 8 out of 10. So there we have it. Adding it all together, he gets a final score of 7.5 out of 10. And this figure looks absolutely fantastic in bot mode. It looks really good in alt mode, and it's got a mostly decent transformation. There are a couple of niggles in there, however, but it is mostly good. The posability is decent, not quite up there in terms of today's standards. There's no ab crunch and that kind of stuff, but it is well built. There's good ratchets and good movements, and it can do stuff. I think there's a big drawback in terms of the face. It doesn't quite look like Scourge, and there are a couple of little aesthetic points as well. But overall, it's a good figure actually. It's really good. On a personal note, I'm really impressed with it. I think this is way better than I was expecting. I passed on this back in the day when it first came out, and I've never gone back to it. And I'm glad I picked this up actually, because this fits in with what I'm trying to build with my collection at the moment. So yeah, in summary, I think this is a pretty good release. There are a couple of points I think they could have changed, but overall it's very good. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the review. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to my channel. Take care, and bye for now.